spiritual biography of Lushül Khenpo Köchuk Drönme, and we are joined with my beloved cow. Khenpo Köchuk Drönme was one of the famed four great Khenpos of Dodrupche Monastery. He was a great learned master and accomplished adept. Khenpo was also known as Lushül Khenpo, Dowa Khenpo, Konme Khenpo, and Lobsang Kunkyap. He was known as Tulku of Tri Kungtang Tempe Drönme of Labrang Monastery. Khenpo was like me, a sheep, but in Tibetan zodiac, it's a bit different because they also have the 5 elements. So he was the earth sheep of the 14th Rabjung, 1859. So that was 3 years after the revolt against British colonialism in South Asia. No, 2 years. 1857? Anyways, I was also born in the sheep year. He was born in 1859 in the Lushül tribal group of Tsachutka in a family that had migrated from the Do Valley of Golok. So Do Drupchen is also from the Go Valley. From childhood, he had a gifted mind for learning text just by a glance or a single hearing. I'm also listening to this Guruji Riteshwar, and he's also really smart. Like, he can imitate sounds, he can tell stories of the Ramayana, and he's also like formally active in politics. So it's like you need to be very smart to do certain things. From Palcho Rinpoche, he received many teachings, including Bodhiacharya Avatara. One day he went to see Palcho Rinpoche, who was staying in a small tent near a family with a big tent. At that time, Palcho wasn't seeing people, and the family had many ferocious dogs that wouldn't let anyone go near. But Khenpo wasn't going to stop anyway. He sneaked along a little narrow ditch and ran into Palcho's tent without being detected by people or dogs. Palcho was bold and direct, but Khenpo was fearless. Palcho said, "Are you a robber or something?" Khenpo said, "Yes, Abu Tsang, the elder one. I want to steal some pure gold of instructions from you." He means he wants teachings. Palcho liked people who talked directly and boldly rather than being diplomatic, polite, or flattering, so Khenpo got the answers to his question. Also, while Khenpo was with him, Palcho completed his famous giant stone wall of prayers, and Khyentse Wampo's blessing grains of consecration landed on the stone wall. With Onpo Tenzin Norbu, Khenpo studied the 2-volume auto-commentary of the Yonten Rinpoche Zo. Soon with his family, following the 3rd Dodrupchen, Khenpo returned to the Do Valley, the homeland of his ancestors. With Gyalwa Dongnak Gyatso, a principal student of Shapkar Tsoktruk Rangchol and Palcho Rinpoche, he studied most of the Mahayana texts by Asanga, Nagarjuna, Chandrakirti, Dharmakirti, and Dignaga, and many tantric texts. So if you listen to a lot of learned lamas, you will know that there's the tantra and the sutra, and sometimes you can be an expert in one and not the other, and it's often like very amazing if you are an expert in both. So when I first approached His Holiness the Dalai Lama's teachings, I just assumed he would only teach on sutra, but actually as I got to know more and more about like his empowerments, he's also very well versed in the tantras. So that's just my misconception coming from like my background. Yeah. So yeah, Khenpo became the great scholar of sutric and tantric texts of both Nyingma and Gelug traditions. He received many inner transmissions and instructions from the 3rd Dodrupchen, whose biography we will finish at some later date. He also knew medicine and was busy diagnosing and giving free medicine to local people. He was learned in astrology and astronomy as well. His main tutelary deity was Chakrasamvara of the Mahasiddha Luipa tradition. Luipa is like the fish Matsyendranath guy. He had recited over 300 million mantras of chakra samvara. He was well known for having attained the illusory body through chakra samvara practice. One who attains the illusory body can transfer his mind into the divine body of the deity and travel to various pure lands, and then return to his original body. Khenpo, however, would not acknowledge such attainment publicly and would only say, "Because of my strong devotion, whenever I remember my tutelary deity, instantly I feel a hair-rising joy. I am highly satisfied with such an attainment." He had many pure visions of Buddhas and deities and received blessings and attainments. He was able to see beings in various forms that are invisible to us. For example, in his youth, he had a consistent vision of an old, ugly, and angry-looking woman, but as a meditator, Khenpo viewed her as a divine image. Divine image. I bought this from like a local store. Yeah. In later years, he transformed into the pure image of Ekajati, the source and preserver of the Tantras. He also had many encounters with Niwa, a harmful spirit force who always kept harassing him. This force is said to have caused the illnesses of both Dodrum Lingpa and the third Dodrupchen. We haven't gotten there yet in Dodrupchen's biography. One day, the spirit force again came to him. With great compassion in his mind, Khenpo repeated 3 times, "I will never abandon you with my compassion until you become enlightened. I will never abandon you with my compassion until you become enlightened. I will never abandon you with my compassion until you become enlightened." After that, not only Khenpo but even his disciples were left alone by the spirit. One day, the disciple was trying to light a butter lamp for a long time without success. Then Khenpo laughed and the wick immediately caught fire. The disciple asked Khenpo, "What happened?" Khenpo said, "With the thought of the lamp is a body of water, I merged into meditative absorption." During the latter half of his life, Khenpo mainly lived at Dodrupchen Monastery as one of the 4 major Khenpos and concentrated exclusively on teaching and meditating. He was not only a great scholar, but a quick reader of his students' minds. His lectures were lively to hear, easy to comprehend, detailed in explanations, and profound in meaning. He was tall and big-boned, with a wide skull and high cheekbones like a lion's. For many decades of his later life, he became very heavy and couldn't go out of his house on the hill without 2 powerful men assisting him with their full strength. Khenpo lived in a 2-story house filled with books and religious objects. His house was situated between rocks and juniper trees, in the middle of the hill behind Dodrupchen Monastery, overlooking the whole monastery and Sangshen field. He stayed alone in his house. In the early dawn, he would start his practice of meditations and recitations. Then he would have yogurt and cake, shun, for his breakfast. I don't know what this is. Soon he resumed his meditation session, which would continue until the arrival of some of his students at about 11 o'clock. The students would clean and fill over 600 offering bowls with water. Some would make his daily offering of 100 butter lamps, and one would make lunch or just tea for him. By the time the students had finished their offering arrangements, he would have finished his lunch, and together they would say an offering prayer. Then he would start teaching. When my teacher, Kyala Khenpo, was studying with him, Khenpo Köchuk Drönme would teach 2 or 3 classes, or occasionally even as many as 7 classes a day. This is Tulku Thondup, who later immigrated to the US, talking about his teacher studying with Köchuk Drönme. Most of the time, he had about 70 students studying with him. There was no particular course to take, but he taught according to the wishes and needs of the students. He could teach tantras to the most advanced students, madhyamaka, prajnaparamita, or abhidharma to advanced students, logic to beginners, and simple text to ordinary students on the same day. Both the words and meaning of the root text by Nagarjuna, Asanga, Dharmakirti, Chandrakirti, and others were in his memory. He also remembered the meaning of many of their commentaries. Usually, he didn't finish his teachings until dark. Then some students would light the butter lamps and would say an offering prayer together. Then Khenpo would have his tea. When the butter lamps had burned out, some students would clean the lamps and leave Khenpo alone till the following noon. About the structure of his courses, Laotang Tulku Drönme, a principal disciple of Khenpo, wrote, "First, he taught the text of the collected elementary topics, science of intellect, science of reasoning, and the five texts. Then the commentary on the discipline chapter of Bodhisattva Bhumi, and after that the 50 verses on having a teacher and text on tantric precepts, the commentary of the 5 stages of Guhya Samaja on empowerments and the development stage, and the tantras of Vajra Bhairava, Chakra Samvara, and Kala Chakra. These were followed by Guhya Garbha Mayajala Tantra. He concluded them with the sacred introduction of Tsokpa Chempo. This was the teaching tradition of the omniscient noble Lama." So that is a lot. Because of the Khenpo's non-sectarian approach to scholarship and the fact that his teachings were both Nyingma and Gelug texts, some Nyingma scholars felt uncomfortable. A rumor spread when Katok Situk Choki Gyatso visited Khenpo. Situ's attendants witnessed the writings of Tsongkhapa were wrapped in silk and brocade, and the writings of Longchen Rabjam were covered in dust. Longchen Rabjam is one of the Nyingma founders. This was totally untrue. Longchen Rabjam's writings were wrapped in double covers, both silk or brocades and cotton, as were the writings of Tsongkhapa, the Gelug reformer. Visiting many monasteries and places in Golok, Khenpo taught scholarly texts and conferred the tantric transmissions. He ordained hundreds of monks and nuns and established annual rainy season retreat traditions at many monasteries. He completed teachings on Abhisamaya Lamkara at Tartang Monastery of Golok, and other major texts to Chokchul Rinpoche, Thupten Choki Dawa, and other selected students, and Akong Khenpo acted as his teaching assistant. Kyorpon. For the young tulkus and monks of Tartang, he gave teachings on Bodhiacharya Avatara. At Godey Dzogchen Namgyal Ling Monastery, the seat of Choing Thopten Torje in Rekong, he taught and established the annual rainy season retreat. After the deaths of other 3 great Khenpos and the passing away of Dodrup Chen in 1926, the responsibility of upholding the scholarship of Dodrup Chen Monastery landed on Khenpo's shoulder. For over a decade, he taught ceaselessly and did not allow the monastery to be affected by the great losses. People hardly felt any effect in terms of the scholastic importance of the monastery. There was hardly any scholars in Golok and Ser areas in those days who weren't students of Dodrup Chen Monastery and of Khenpo himself. After Khenpo's death, although there were many great Khenpos at Dodrup Chen Monastery, the good students who came from other monasteries and places went back to their own areas, and Dodrup Chen Monastery went through a great decline for almost 2 decades. I think I froze.